if looking back in 50 years' time, and I said I'd done this rather than just taking a random consultant job doing I don't know what consultants do, then I'd be happy to live my life like that. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Chloe. I'm a philosopher, a mentor, and former advisor to the British Prime Minister. Meet my co-host Kevin. He's a former US Coast Guard captain and now an esteemed business leader and family man. And together, we're going to help you find your courage. And how do you find your courage? You crush the dilemmas that life throws at you. So we're going to help you do just that.
What we wanted to make would take a lot of money. And so I was trying to figure out a way to get money for it. So of every investor I approached, a couple of angels, a couple of VCs, they were like, yeah, there's no market for this, or you need traction, you need some sort of users, you need some sort of revenue. So I was sort of stuck in a loop for a year. It's like, okay, so I need revenue, I need money to make a product, but I need a product to get money. So I didn't know how to figure it out.
Yeah.
I think I approached Ollie with that. And then that's when I had that meeting with Tom, and that's when I got introduced to Ollie back in I think November last year. Yeah. And they basically told me just simplify the idea down as much as possible. During that, simplify it down as much as possible so you can actually build a product and get some sort of user base. And it doesn't have to be revenue driven, just sort of traction driven like that. And then I had a couple more meetings, and then sort of that message got embedded in. And so then we spent over Christmas, we reworked it. We started working with the firefighters again, trying to figure out what the minimum sort of tool would be useful to them. And then it came to January, and I was working with two other people. One of them got a new job because we all had full-time jobs. One of them got a new job in a startup, and he just didn't have time to commit to anymore. And the other one was doing all the software stuff. And so he worked at Facebook. And again, unfortunately, he just didn't have the time to commit to it anymore. So yeah, we stopped working on that for a little bit.
That must have been a bit gutting.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, definitely. Sort of like a project you're thinking about. Well, I think, did you know the whole all boys think about the Roman Empire?
Yeah.
Yeah, my girlfriend says wildfire is your Roman Empire. I think I've thought about it every single day, maybe for about 4 years now.
Wow.
So yeah, when it was an idea I'd had for almost 2 years, and then I was like, oh no, what do I do now? Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that's so hard for you because, I mean, did you feel like a little bit let down by them?
No. I think we'd always been clear about what our expectations were, and they'd both always been clear about what their expectations were. And during the year, the reason I think we were quite slow at development is because we all had other jobs that we had to do in order to pay the bills. So no, I didn't feel let down, and they put what they could into it. And I think we all learned a lot. So that was the main thing. That was all what we said during that year and a bit, is that as long as we learn something, even if this goes wrong, as long as we learn something, then call it a success, I think.
Yeah. But it's your dream.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. And I was gonna say, I've not given up on the idea.
Yeah.
I think the idea is still could be incredibly impactful. So at some point, hopefully, I can push on that again, and that's what me and Max, the new guy I'm working with, that's where we want to take it. The plan is to start in insurance, where we know there's money, we know we can make revenue, but then move into the more community resilient space, government space. Well, that's where I want to take it. At least I think he's on the same page.
So you haven't really given up. It's just you've had a setback. I think that's your dilemma. Is the dilemma of a setback?
Yeah, I guess you should call it that. Yeah.
Because that's what happens in life. Is sometimes it's not all about our actions or our persistence or our determination or our character. That's not the only thing you need for success. Sometimes there is bad luck.
Yeah.
setbacks. There is external circumstances that are completely outside of your control.
Yeah.
And I guess part of being a founder is weathering that storm.
Yeah.
And so how is it now when you're in this, you're working towards this goal, you've got the people, everything's like happening. And I'm really curious about how you dealt with it when it became clear to you that this was not going to happen in the time that you thought it was going to happen.
Okay. Sorry, can you say that again in terms of?
Yeah. Well, just was there a moment when you realized like, oh, this probably isn't happening now, or it's not happening in the time frame?
Yeah, I think there definitely was, and it was probably like maybe midway through the year, actually, like 7, 8 months in. So we made some quick, like we almost did it in bursts. We made some quick, like initial progress with development. Got some good meetings with firefighters in, and that was all looking really good. And then we had maybe like a 3 or 4 month slump where what originally we wanted to do was I wanted to keep working with my professor because him and his colleagues who had the idea for the model, if we could then get their whole academic input and link up with universities, like in terms of the science, they could do all the science and we could do the product development and the business side. And that's how I saw it in my head. Over like 2 or 3 months, we tried to figure out how to work with them. And it was my professor at Imperial and then another 2 researchers at Cambridge. We tried to figure out how to work with them, but we couldn't make it work because they were stuck in their IP licenses with the universities. So basically just couldn't make that work. And then after that, we like, okay, we don't know what to do now. Like we sort of just hit a wall. Ended up meeting one of my family friends, like one of my dad's mates, who does software sales. He's done software sales for about 30 years now. And we met him just for a pint, and he was like, just insanely inspiring. He was like, I think you've got something here, you just need to keep going. So then that was maybe like June, July last year. And then after that, we had a great summer. Like we got some really good development down. And yeah, we again made some really good progress. And then after that, again, maybe after a couple of months, the traction sort of slowed down a bit. And yeah, the momentum sort of just dissipated. And in my head, I was like, okay, what do we do now again? So yeah, I'd say there were a couple of times. That first time after we met those professors and realized it wasn't working, and then again at the end of last summer, realized it wasn't working. And I think the other guys felt that too as well.
That's really hard. That's hard. Can I ask you a little bit of a different kind of question?
Yeah.
What is it about wildfires that captivates you? What is it about that? Like, why do you think about it every day?
Yeah, that is a good question. I think my girlfriend asked me the same stuff. I think it started as like a purely like academic interest. So I was always interested in like thermodynamics, fluid mechanics, and then being able to apply all the stuff I'd learned during uni to something that I could actually see in the real world. That's sort of what I think. Well, that's sort of what engineering is taking maths and physics and applying it into the real world. And I was always interested in like thermodynamics, fluid mechanics over all the other stuff. So that's where it started as an academic interest. And then once I started actually chatting to all the firefighters, like they had real problems which weren't being solved. And I was like, okay, there's actually such a big human element here, is that people's lives are being destroyed, people are losing their livelihoods. So how can we actually make a difference with it? And then you look at all the numbers, and it comes up every summer. Like all these headlines come up every single summer, and then people always, once sort of September, October hits, it goes out of people's minds because the new headlines come up. It's quite interesting how it's seasonally like that. Suddenly it's a big problem, and then everyone forgets about it, and the next problem comes along. But it's still there in the background. Like they happen sort of all year round. So I think it's in terms of climate risks, it actually seems to be quite an underrepresented problem that people talk about. And that's especially what we've figured out in the insurance space, is that floods are a big thing, storms are a big thing, hail, wind, but wildfires, no one really, outside of the US and parts of Australia, no one really cares about them as much, which is surprising, because you see it on the news and you're like, oh, this is such a big problem. But yeah, it's just not a huge thing. So I think, yeah, like that's what keeps me interested, is that, okay, can I try and do something about this? And the first challenge is actually raising awareness, almost.
Do you feel a responsibility because no one else is talking about it, that you have to be the advocate?
I wouldn't say a responsibility as much. I'd say just, no, yeah, I wouldn't say responsibility. I'd just say it's something I found myself into and, yeah, enjoying. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, I feel like we've gotten to know a little bit about like your career and like your goals and everything. I'm interested to learn more about the kind of dreams that you had when you were a kid.
Yeah.
So you talked about the university, you're really into like math and physics. Was that always your passion growing up?
Yeah, pretty much. I think I was that kind of nerd. Loved a bit of mental maths when I was younger. Yeah, I just always found that fascinating. Maths, physics, chemistry seemed to be what I liked. Never very good at English or history. I really enjoyed history. Just never great at all the writing stuff. English, I was just awful at. Like one of my teachers, I remember during GCSEs, I gave in a piece of coursework, and he was like, "Yeah, I don't want to submit this on your behalf."
Wow.
Because it was that bad. I was like, "Yeah, fair play." So I knew where my strengths were, definitely.
Yeah.
I'd say dreams wise, like I'd always looked at space. Like space was a big thing. Every kid dreams of being an astronaut. So that was always a big thing.
Wow.
Have you tried bringing some of your ideas into across the pond over into America? Are you talking to anybody over here about that stuff?
Yeah, so that's sort of what we've started doing this week.
Okay.
It's quite, well, in terms of this business, it's like it's what we're figuring out right now. Is it started off as like a European focused wildfire model, and then we've chatted to loads of people in Europe, and it doesn't seem to be a problem for them yet. Obviously, the US has been challenged with this for a number of decades. So we are now like starting to develop a US focused model, and hopefully we can have a good impact over there.
Is it a software product, essentially what you're doing, a modeling and simulation of how wildfires spread? It's just to try and understand what that is a little bit.
Yeah, so that's what I was doing originally. So my original idea when I was working with the other two guys with firefighters was, can we make a platform where firefighters can see the exact fire perimeter that is there on the ground right now? So this is if a fire starts and they've been called out there. Can they see the exact fire perimeter, get all access to any data they need, wind data, fuel data, weather data, all that kind of stuff? And then can we predict how that will spread? So over the next 24, 36 hours, can we tell them where that's going to spread geographically so they can get ahead of it? And then actually, can we tell them how they need to suppress it? So knowing what the resources they have, can we use AI and game theory to tell them how to suppress it? And I actually managed to release some academic research with my professor and another master's student on that aspect of using game theory to optimize suppression. And then this business is actually focused on risk analysis. So it's more like, okay, if we take every single point a wildfire could ignite, or where the most probable points they could ignite are, then look at how they might spread, which areas are most at risk of having a wildfire hit. So it's the pre-ignition part of like, okay, where do we need to mitigate? Where do we need to put in extra defenses? Rather than the reactive part, which I was focused on before.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. That's good stuff. I mean, it's a huge problem over here. I mean, when you first started talking about it, it's just wildfires are, across this nation are constantly burning.
Yeah.
And I gotta believe that some sort of risk profile associated with fires that was proven to be good and accurate over time, could be something really, really valuable. So it sounds like you're up to some really neat stuff. And yeah, the one thing I want to say to you right out of the blocks is you are in good company with respect to people who want to take applied science and engineering, and put it into work in the real world. And the poster child, best example of that is Elon Musk. If you ask Elon Musk who he is, he will tell you all day, every day, I'm an engineer. He's not an entrepreneur. He's not a businessman. He is an engineer. And if you, I've studied him a lot, and if you read about his life and you listen to interviews about his life, and I'm telling you this for your own, for your own application, his whole existence is about figuring out how to solve the engineering problem associated with that, whatever he's working on. And so he'll say to his engineers, with an engineering mind, how can we take this part and make it for 1/10 of the cost? And they'll say it can't be done, and he'll say wrong answer, figure it out, make it happen. Take your applied math and engineering and science and figure out how to do this. And he's relentless about it. And that's why SpaceX, speaking of space, is by far the leader in the space race, if you even call it a space race anymore, by leaps and bounds. So that's very neat that you're doing that, and you're in a good market, in a good place.
Should be interesting. We'll see how it goes.
I have a question for you, Saaras, and that is this. There's a quote that I like very much that I often think about in my own life, and it's by Jim Rohn, and I'm not going to get it exactly right, but he says something to the effect: work full-time on your job and part-time on your fortune. And what he means by that is you start out with an idea like you have, and you know that there's real world application to what you're bringing or potentially bringing to the market. But you got the chicken and egg problem, which you've already articulated. And the chicken and egg problem is you need money to build a product, but you can't get money until you have a product. And so what do you do first? And believe me, everybody has that problem when they're getting started out. And something that Chloe says, and Chloe, I'm gonna steal this from you because I know this quote and I've used it before, but I love that you use it all the time. And that is the Winston Churchill quote: never, never, never give up. And so when you start getting feedback from the world that your idea is not working the way you're presenting it to the market, all that's telling you is you got to try another path. So would you be willing to have a job, whatever, to get a proper job, as you said, while in the background, in your nights and weekends, in the margins of your life, you're continuing to develop this product that you think can get better and better along the way? Is that something that you would consider doing? And talk about that for a minute.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that is what I ended up doing for about a year and a half ago, and that is what I've been doing since then. So I have a full-time job at a big engineering construction company, but then in my off time, if I've not got any meetings, if I've not got any work to do in my evenings, my weekends, that's when I was always working on that stuff. I mean, I was technically at work today with them, but sitting in the office with TerraGrid and Max doing commercial stuff. So yeah, I like that. I do like that quote. And it's sort of the whole, I don't know, it's glamorized, isn't it? Where like yeah, it's glamorous in terms of like perseverance. Like
Mhm.
that is the whole entrepreneur life, is to be working nights, weekends, whenever you can.
It's hard. It's
Yeah.
hard. And a lot of people, you know, a lot of times it's so hard that people aren't willing to pay the price. And then that's okay. I mean, everybody is cut out of a different bolt of cloth, right? And so, and there are some people who are like, no way, man. I know I have something valuable, and I know that this can make the world, this can make our climate, this can make this whole thing better. And
Yeah.
so you just are driven to make sure that it gets to market. And there's another concept that it's actually it's Stoic philosophy. Chloe and I love philosophy because that's where a lot of our stuff actually is founded upon. But the philosophical statement is the obstacle is the way. And the point is, there's no such thing as a smooth, straight, clear path to getting done what you want to get done. Every single day, you're going to be confronted with the next obstacle.
Yeah.
And if you just change your mindset to expect it, okay, where's the next one coming from? So, I mean, I know it's coming. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
You know, maybe the pitch that I did that really looked promising fell apart, and they said, no, we don't want it. You know, whatever it is, it's coming. It's coming. It's going to get you. And so the trick is, and Chloe, I'd love to hear actually some of your thoughts on this too. Same thing. The trick is, the world gives you feedback. That's beautiful. That's great. You know what's working, you know what's resonating, and you know what's not. And if you internalize that in a different way, rather than rejection, but as feedback, then it makes it easier to go forward.
Yeah.
Definitely. But it's definitely a skill to learn that part as well, because when you first start getting told, oh, this isn't the right place, or this isn't the right market, or this isn't going to work, then it does it does affect you. It does beat you down a little bit. And especially for ages, like I'd have good points and bad points. I'd have like a month or two where I didn't put in the time. I know I didn't put in the effort and the time to make it work. And then a month or two when I was like, like we're back on this now. So yeah, it does go up and down like that. But I think, like the long-term perseverance, okay, like I've just got this goal in my mind and that's what I'm going to work towards. I know I'm going to have times where I can't put the time. I know I'm going to have times where I can put way more time in. But if I just keep that in my mind, then maybe, hopefully, one day we can get there.
Absolutely. Be careful whose feedback you value, you truly value. Because think about their experience and their perspective. Someone who has no background in maths, physics, or climate science probably doesn't know what they're talking about. You do. And so if their reaction is, oh, it's not going to work, there's no market for this, I mean, maybe they're wrong. Like, be respectful, be humble. If they're talking about, if let's say they're an investor and they're talking about, in this pitch, you should change this or change that, because from an investment perspective, that's wrong. Absolutely listen to them. But if they say, I'm not sure there's a market in this, but you've done the research, you've found the market, you're the expert, you know people want to buy it.
Yeah.
You don't have to take that on the chin. You don't have to tell them they're wrong, but you can know they're wrong. And also, it's interesting what happens when you step forward as an entrepreneur, like you have. You get all this criticism from people outside the ring. This is the founder's journey. It's like you try and do something great. You try and do something different. You try and solve a problem. You are working extra hard. You're making sacrifices. You're using creative energy. You're using your brain to do something good. And then all these people who are doing nothing start telling you, you're doing it wrong. And it's so frustrating because you're like, well, why don't you come and solve a problem? You can't say that because you chose to do it. But in that ring, in that kind of, in the kind of ecosystem of entrepreneurialism, you will find other founders who totally get what you're on about.
Yeah.
And who get it and who are like, hey, you get back up, you keep going. And maybe they will give you some criticism, but you know it comes from their experience.
Yeah.
If someone's done something before, or they have experience in a field and they say to me, and they give me feedback, but they've earned the right to give that feedback, 100% I listen. I change what I'm doing because they know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
If someone who has no background knowledge, who's just a negative person, who has no understanding of what I'm trying to do, says, I don't think it's going to work. That's great. Have a great weekend, sir. I'm going to keep working on this because I know I'm onto a good one. So pay attention to whose feedback you value, and everyone has an angle as well. Like some people might give you, there might be some people that are skeptical about this for other reasons. Maybe they're skeptical about, maybe like I'm a creative, right? So maybe you're speaking to someone who's a creative and they don't really get science. And they're like, I don't really get it. That's their weakness, not a weakness in your idea. Or it might just be, they don't like, you've got like you're very well educated. Some people are intimidated by very well educated people, right? So sometimes the negative feedback is not about your idea. It's about some aspect of you that triggers a person, some insecurity they have. I mean, the amount of people who have never gone for their dreams, who criticize people for chasing their dreams in the wrong way, is astronomical. It's like, if you're another dreamer like me, cool. If you're not a dreamer, you're not trying anything, I can't really respect your opinion about my dream because you didn't try yours. So you're probably upset that you're not. Anyway, that's my TED talk about the non-believers and why you should be, just really wise to people's intentions about that negative feedback.
I like the idea about intentions because you're right. And there are people who they don't even really realize why they're being down on you, but there's something there, and it's not necessarily always coming from a good place. It might be out of jealousy. It might be out of they're afraid you're going to show them up over time, and or they want to think they're better than you, and there's all kinds of things. Every once in a while, you get somebody who like Chloe said, you really got to pay attention to. Really quick, true story about my journey, part of my journey. When I was getting out of the military and starting a business, I started to, socialize that with my close family and friends that this is what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I got a lot of negative. I got like, you don't know anything about business. You're not a businessman. You've been in the military your whole adult life. What do you know? Can you really do this? I don't think you can really do this. It's so risky. Why would you do that? Why don't you just go get a nice cush, program manager job with some large DC beltway bandit and live happily ever after with a decent paycheck? But what they didn't know, just like Chloe said, they didn't know what was going on internally to me.
Yeah,
They didn't know the internal vision that I had. They didn't know the internal drive that I had. They didn't know what I wanted to do with it. And I got from people who are close to me, who loved me, who cared for me, saying, we think this is a bad decision.
Yeah.
And that's hard to overcome. It really is. But now, having over the last 19 years, here I am still going, having the company having earned hundreds of millions of dollars in those 19 years, you can do it. The hardest part is starting. It really is. It really is. And so you're right there. You're right there. You just got to have a mindset of this is all feedback. I'm just getting good feedback. And to quote Thomas Edison when he was trying to make the light bulb work, I haven't failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that don't work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on the 10,000, go ahead.
Yeah. Being an entrepreneur is all about pivoting.
Yeah.
You just try it. Sometimes it's like a tiny tweak, or it's a little change. And I like the 100 rule. Like if you reach out to 100 people and they all say no, you need to change what you're asking. Not your product, but maybe the way you're asking it, or maybe start with a smaller, thing. But you don't know until you try 100 times. Maybe that's a bit much for people. Maybe start with 10. Work up to 100, but you're a tough cookie. So I wanted to ask you, had there been any kind of, would you say there were kind of non-believers around you, or people that have discouraged you from pursuing this dream of yours?
I think I'm actually in a very fortunate position that I haven't really had that.
Awesome.
Which is very, it's surprising, but it's very, very fortunate. I'm very lucky to have that. In the sense that a lot of my friends love hearing about it. They're always backing me. They're like, oh yeah, try this, or I know this person. They're helping me out with that. My parents were very supportive. My dad's quite a big risk taker, and he was like, "Yeah, you're young, you've got no big responsibilities. You may as well give it a go now." So I was like, "Yeah, cool." And then he was like, "Yeah, we're happy to help you out if you need to, all that kind of stuff." So I lived at home for a long time, worked on this for about a year, and didn't have to pay rent, didn't have to pay food, anything. So that was very helpful. And so yeah, it's been very supportive, actually. And then even moving to hopefully this new job, joining TerraGrid with Max. Again, we could, well, if we don't make any revenue, if it doesn't go anywhere, we'll probably run out of money in about 6 months. And again, they were like, "Oh, just go for it. Why not?" So yeah, I'd say back on my friends, a lot of them are very entrepreneurial as well. A lot of them have ideas. A lot of them are trying out their ideas. Like the people I've managed to connect with have always been like that. So yeah, it's very, very nice.
That's awesome. That is, you know what, you are in a really good position, because when you have the right people around you, you can really go for it. And
Yeah,
all the difference when you have that support, you know, from friends, from your parents, like that's awesome. And you know, sometimes when we have a dream, the universe conspires to make that happen.
Yeah.
And you've been given these entrepreneurial friends, these amazing supportive parents, this network. You've been given this kind of introduction to me and Kevin. Everything's working for you. These are all signs that you can do this and that you should do this. And it's progress, not perfection.
Definitely.
I love the kind of grind set and the kind of, you know, work 20 hours a day and like never sleep. I'm kind of not really wired that way. I like to go slow and steady. You know, 1 hour a day or 1 hour a weekend every week is way better than cramming for like 2 weeks and then burning out and doing nothing else.
Yeah.
You know, the incremental gains are really powerful.
Yeah.
So it's all about, I think as a founder, finding your own balance of knowing what your limit is and then planning accordingly and going, okay, maybe I only have 3 hours in a Sunday. So what can I achieve 3 hours in a Sunday?
Yeah. What's the
over 50 Sundays? Probably a lot. But I think sometimes people don't think because you're not going so super fast or intensely that you're not moving, but you are moving.
Yeah.
And so one thing I'd love for you to take away from today is maybe just to set that weekly goal of what's a manageable amount of time for you to commit to this every week, and then work out how much time that is over a year, and you'll be able to see the huge difference the huge dent you can make in this project at the time. And your life will be transformed in like a year. I think you can really do it.
Cheers.
Yeah,
it's very inspiring. I like this.
Yeah, here's another example. And Chloe's right. Chloe, I love listening to all the stuff you say because it's you're beyond your years, for sure. But I decided that my family doesn't have a good record of family history. I know who my grandparents were, but my great grandparents a lot less, and one more generation beyond that. Other than just really basic high level stuff, I don't know anything. And so I decided I was going to not be that person who didn't pass down some word about family history. So I was going to write a book, an autobiography about my life, and capture my experiences so that generations down the road can know something about what happened to this member of the family who lived 150 years ago. And so I committed, just like Chloe just said, I committed that I was going to write for 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week.
Sure.
To do this. I mean, that's not hard. I even got the weekends off. I could work on the weekends if I want, but it had to be a minimum of 30 minutes a day for 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Less than a year later, the book was done. It was amazing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it works. These little incremental small changes. And then there are some days you're going to be so down and out, so discouraged, so like, this is just not happening. This is not going. This is not making it. And I'm telling you, just like Chloe said, the world conspires to help you. If you keep going, all of a sudden something happens.
Yeah.
And there's a new door opening, or you had a new idea, or you met somebody or something happens, and all of a sudden, glad I didn't stop, because if I had, I would have never met this person or
definitely.
had this idea. And so
I think I saw this picture once, which I always quite liked, and it was two people on the side of the road. They'd broken down, and it was like, which one are most people going to help? And one of them was just standing there. His car had broken down, literally just standing there and doing nothing about it. And the other one was pushing his car. He was just alone, just trying to push his car. And the question was, which one would you be more likely to help? And in my head, it was like, yeah, the one who's pushing his car, because he's trying it himself. He just needs help with it. And then I can't remember what happened. Yeah, the next thing was just a lot of people then just started helping him. And yeah, it was just nice to see, because again, little bits of progress and just trying it yourself, people would start to rally around you to get you there.
They really do. And one thing that's really a good use of your time is talking to everyone about it. Kevin and I met and we founded this business probably because I had hundreds of conversations where I was saying, I want to solve this problem. Young people feel powerless. I want to help uplift them. I care about these issues. I care about character. Just to anyone that would listen, even at social occasions, a little bit weird. I mean, founders, we're the ones at the social gathering that's like, have I told you about my business idea? We're like, no. But keep doing that, because it's like a spiderweb effect.
Yeah.
And then suddenly people are like, oh, wildfires. Oh, I was speaking to someone about that at a party 2 weeks ago. So just talk to everyone about it, and you'd be amazed at the random, amazing connections that you make and people that come in to help. And I think talking about your idea is the equivalent of that picture of the man moving his car.
Yeah.
Because talking about it is selling it. And selling is work. It's hard work.
Yeah.
And it's exhausting. And there'll be days when you think, I can't do another pitch call. I can't do it. And then one of my favorite quotes is actually, have you seen the second June movie?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, it's either the first or the second film. And he's like being a little bit, I think it's the first film. And he's being a little bit grumpy with his tutor. And he's like, I don't feel like it. And his tutor says, mood? What's mood got to do with it? And I don't know why, but that quote has helped me so much recently, because our moods are not a good guidance system. You should not be guided by your moods. Yeah. Because if you were guided by your moods, you probably wouldn't have a very good life. Because you just, so sometimes I'm like, before a gym workout or before a difficult call, or I'm nervous, I'm like, what's mood got to do with it? I don't have to be in the mood to do it. And then something happens. There's this 10-minute rule. When you are in it for 10 minutes and you push through that first 10 minutes, it's weird. You start enjoying it.
Yeah.
Have you found this?
Yeah, definitely. I think, as you said, like one of the hardest things is starting. So I find myself procrastinating a lot, and I just don't want to start something. But as soon as I start it, I'll just get super engrossed into it and just be on it for like 2-3 hours. And you just get sucked into it. But yeah, the hardest thing is overcoming that. Oh, I don't feel like doing it right now, and just starting it. I think I had a funny story on, as you said, just talking about stuff and you meet random people, is that I've met so many people at the pub who have been like, oh, I can help you out with this. And I've had meetings after, just because I was randomly talking to them, be like, oh yeah, I'm working on this right now. They're like, oh yeah, I know someone who's doing this, or I've got an idea, or like I work in this space, I can help you out. The funniest one being a year and a half ago, when I just started working on my project, I met a guy at a party who just also started on doing wildfires with remote sensing. And that happened to be Max's previous partner. So the way I met Max is because I just started talking about wildfires at this party. And then 2 years later, a year and a half, 2 years later, I'm hopefully taking a job. So yeah, it does like help just talking about it and selling it and just getting out there.
Absolutely. And you're already doing all these things. And I think so much of this call is just a sign to you. Like, I don't think things happen by accident. I think you were supposed to come to this podcast and we were supposed to tell you, don't give up.
Sure.
Keep going. Because it's awesome. You're passionate. You have a great idea.
Yeah.
But we all need encouragement sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
No, I need it.
So I'm gonna ask you a very important question.
Yeah.
And you may know why I'm asking it immediately, and you may not, and that's fine. But here's the question, and I'd really like you to, think about it and answer it to the best you can right now. And your answer will change, by the way, over time.
Okay.
Why do you want to do this?
Oh, that's a very good question, isn't it? I guess I can sort of break it down into, well, it's all personal reasons really in the end, isn't it? I do sort of, I think I'm a bit of a believer in there's no such thing as a selfless action. I think everything ends up being for some selfish reason, even if it's just to make you feel good. It's still a sort of selfish reason. So I think that would probably be it, is that one, just general interest in this area. Like I said, always enjoyed maths and physics and applying stuff to the real world. But also like having some sort of impact does make me feel good. I'm like, okay, I'm actually doing something. And it makes you feel good when you tell people about it, like, and they're like, oh, that's really cool. That's definitely a big motivator. You're like, oh, okay. Like, it's sort of external validation does always help. And yeah, so I know I sort of tailed off there, but yeah, I guess that's the reason, is like having some sort of an impact in this space. I think would be, if looking back in 50 years time and I said I'd done this rather than just taking a random consultant job doing, I don't know what consultants do, then I'd be happy to live my life like that. Yeah.
You said some great stuff, and oh, by the way, you're right. Look, I mean, Chloe and I have talked about this a lot, just on our own journey and what we're up to. You can have reasons that are external. The universe needs this. I can make the world a better place.
Yeah.
This is important to get out there. You can also have some whys that are very personal, and they can be very even selfish.
Yeah.
I mean, these are important things that drive you. And it may be, I want to make a lot of money. I want to have influence. I want to have impact. I want people to be proud of me. I want to shove it up the ass of people who don't believe in me. Whatever it is, all of these things are actually important to think about.
Yeah.
Write down and remind yourself of routinely. That will give you fuel that you didn't know that you had. And when you're down and out, you go back and you look at your list of whys and you say, okay, now I know why I'm wanted. And don't worry about selfish. Selfish is okay.
Yeah.
Because you're a good man with a good heart, and you're going to do good things in the world. And some of it's going to be for selfish reasons, and that's okay.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
What's your why? Why do you guys want to do this? Sorry, I'm turning back on you.
Oh. The student becomes the teacher. The guest becomes the host. There's so many reasons.
Yeah, you go ahead, Chloe, and then I'll give mine.
There are the external reasons. I'm deeply moved. I'm a feeler. I feel emotions very deeply.
Okay.
I'm deeply moved by the need for encouragement in this younger generation and the scale of the mental health challenges.
Sure.
And that's also an intrinsic motivation, because when I see younger people being healed and supported and encouraged and they feel a bit better, there's a part of me that feels better. There's a part of my inner child that's healed in that process. It just makes me feel good to see good happening and to be part of it. And yeah, it's totally selfish. I enjoy this stuff so much. Like this conversation with you, like I love getting to know people. I love learning their stories. I love sharing some inspirational quotes and mantras that helped me feel connected in that moment. Like, yeah, this is what being a human being is all about. Like connecting with other people and supporting them.
Yeah.
But also, I want to do something good. When I was growing up, my motivation for politics was I wanted to be important.
Sure.
And I thought important was about having a really fancy job. And then I realized that actually every human being is important. It wasn't something that I needed to earn through achievement. And so now my mindset is more about, what I leave behind. They say, what you do for yourself dies with you, but what you do for others leaves behind.
Yeah.
And so I would like to measure my impact not by the sense of power or the fancy job, but the impact that I'm leaving behind. And I think every time you change someone's life for the better, that changes all the lives around them. It's like this incredible kind of spiderweb effect of changing the world. So this is a very long-winded way of saying, in many ways, I know why, but also there's a mystery. Like you
Yeah.
have difficult to explain. Sometimes we have these dreams and we can't say exactly why, just that we have this dream.
Sure.
You don't have to, there doesn't have to be a reason. It's your dream. You don't have to explain it away or justify it. And the reason why I asked you about, why what you love about it is I love hearing people talk about their passions. And so but you don't have to explain it. And so there's an unknowability to why we have these dreams, but a world with good character, a world where people feel empowered, where individuals understand their own power, because we all have this power of character. That just like makes me so happy and so excited.
Yeah.
That's my why. And I just enjoy it. I just like you enjoy modeling for wildfires. Doesn't have to make sense to anyone if you love it.
Yeah, definitely.
And the general themes for me are basically the same: the external and internal forces that shape my whys. Externally, I can tell you that, and I'll be pretty specific. The America that I was born into is very different than the America that exists today.
Sure. Okay.
And there's been a cultural drift from there to here, where we're at today. And in many respects, that cultural drift has not gone in a direction that I personally believe is good for the long-term health and well-being of society.
Okay.
That in particular, there's been a moral decline. And so through work on good character and what that means, that maybe we can play a small role in helping people, first of all, learn about what good character is and then live it in their own lives. That makes society a better place.
Yeah.
Long term. So that's the external, but internal, yeah, it's the challenge. It has the potential to make money. And the truth of the matter is, with money comes influence.
Yeah.
And so the more money you have, the more influence you have. And if I want to influence the world for better, then having money is one way to help do that.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Yeah. And so I mean there's selfish reasons there as well, but and we do have to remind ourselves of why we're doing this.
Yeah.
And everybody's is different, and you be your own unique self. Do it for your reasons and be happy and be proud of it and go for it. And don't worry about what the mob is telling you out here, because all that's going to do is distract you and get you off course.
Yeah. I think it's interesting as well how much you can learn about yourself going through these kind of journeys. Like, again, learning about the space, learning about what you're trying to do is great. But when you're just sitting there and on the weekend and like just still working on this, you can learn a lot about why you're doing this and what's actually driving you. It's quite interesting.
You're learning a lot about your character.
Yeah.
What are some of the character traits that you found, for example, in this whole conversation, you really exhibit a lot of persistence and determination. Has that surprised you that you had that within you?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe a little bit. I wouldn't. That's interesting that you said that, as actually, because I wouldn't have said that particularly. Well, I guess because in my head, the amount of stuff you doubt every single day, the amount of stuff I doubt every single day about what I'm doing, is enormous. So like that's almost that's the other side of what everyone doesn't hear, except the people very, very close to you. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me. It obviously, everyone has persistence and determination to some degree, but yeah, it's just interesting to hear you say that.
I would agree, by the way, with what Chloe said. I think her observation is accurate, and that's actually another sign, because we all doubt ourselves. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You talk about the doubts and the fears and who am I and imposter syndrome and I can't really do this. All of that is normal. But it has the theme that's come through is you are a determined and persistent person.
That's okay.
Yeah. So it's really true.
Yeah.
And you should be encouraged by that.
Yeah. Cheers.
Yeah. It's the most human thing in the world to only see our faults.
Yeah.
Our brains are hardwired because, and it makes sense, it's survival instinct. Our brains are hardwired to think about what we did wrong, what went wrong yesterday,
Yeah.
why did we get it wrong, because we're trying to save ourselves from making the same mistake again, which means we end up having a very unbalanced view of who we are.
Sure.
Because your brain doesn't keep hold of the good stuff.
Yeah.
Why do you need to know that? That's not helpful for survival. So you have to be very intentional about rebalancing your brain and making sure that you don't have this unbalanced view of who you are, because your survival brain is just concentrating on you didn't work hard enough that day, or you didn't do enough, or you messed that up, or you haven't done it in a month, so you're a fraud or something.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm like this with my writing sometimes. If I haven't written creatively in like a month, the kind of demon comes out and is like, you're a fraud. You're not really an artist. You're not really an entrepreneur. I'm like, hey, shut up. I'm doing my best here. But it happens, and it's just so human. And we need other people to see the good in us, to remind us that we're so much more than all those bad thoughts about us. And just to really reinforce, like Kevin and I, you know, we've been around the block, worked with some really interesting people. We have a good eye for this, and we both see that determination and persistence as a character trait of yours. And I think you should be really proud of yourself.
Yeah. No, thank you very much.
And here's another thing. This will be my last official act on this call. Probably not, but I'll say it anyway. Live in a 24-hour world.
Okay.
And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is you're going to go through days where you don't do some of the things you meant to do. You had your plan for the day. Instead, you got distracted. Your buddy said, hey, let's go and have a beer. 6 beers later, you're drunk, you're stumbling home, you whatever, all these things. And you wake up the next morning and your tendency is to be down on yourself, and so robbed of energy. You're so discouraged. And what I'm telling you to do is yesterday is over. It's gone. Forget about it. You have today. You have this moment. You woke up. God gave you another day to do what you're going to do. It doesn't matter what you did yesterday or the day before or the day before. And oh, by the way, you're going to screw those things up all the time.
Yeah.
Every step of the way. Forget about it. Live in a 24-hour world. Let go of the past. You're in this moment. From this moment forward, go forward as best you can, and forget all the things that you didn't do yesterday.
Yeah.
It's really very empowering to do that. When I started exercising that in my own life, because I'd feel bad about, I ate too much, or I drank too much, or I didn't work hard enough. I had 2 hours set aside to work on this and I didn't do it at all. I didn't even touch it. And you get all frustrated and down. Don't do that.
Sure.
Just let it go. It's gone. Can't get it.
Time spent.
That's right.
I really like that. I think I needed that today.
Okay.
You're coaching me a bit. We're so hard on ourselves, aren't we?
Yeah.
But I guess when you're an entrepreneur or founder, you don't really have that kind of coach or manager pushing you forward.
Yeah.
You're accountable to yourself.
Yeah.
Which means there's a tendency to be super hard on yourself, because there's no stopgap. There's no one else that's going to, if you don't motivate you, no one's going to push you to do it.
Yeah.
Sometimes what happens is you push yourself too hard. and the perfectionism comes out. And you think, if I was managing someone else, I would definitely give them grace in this deadline.
Yeah.
You know, I would not be this harsh on them, but we're so hard on ourselves. So try to manage yourself as if you were managing someone else. And what would you expect of them? You
Yeah.
know, and how would you deal with it if they had a sick day? Would you tell them, you got to work through, you can't go to the doctor, work's more important? No, you'd say, hey, take a day, go to the doctor. It's that Jordan Peterson rule of you treat yourself like someone you're responsible for taking care of.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
We're so much kinder to others than we are to ourselves. And you know, self-kindness might not be trendy in the startup space, but I think it's absolutely essential for the sustainability
Yeah.
of what you're doing, because it's about that sustainability. It's about how long can you keep going on this, and only you know what is a sustainable practice for you and a sustainable amount of work. The important thing is not to give up, and you can take breaks. You can take a month here. Maybe you'll have some downtimes, but as long as you get back up, you haven't failed.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
No, good message. I like that.
I'm feeling good about this podcast. Is there anything? Oh, actually, no, we haven't handed back to you yet. That's the final. We always have the final say.
You get the final word.
Oh.
Can be anything.
Give me anything.
I feel like I should leave it on a joke.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know nothing related, but I thought just keep it on a high note. Okay, so a man walks into a bar and goes to order a drink, and the bartender says, "Okay, if you look around you, you see all this meat hanging down. You see all this beef, all this lamb, all this pork, everything. It's hanging down from all these ropes. If you can jump up and touch this meat, then I'll give you a drink for free. If you jump up and you fail and you can't touch it, then you buy a drink for everyone in this bar." And the man looks at it and he thinks about it and he's like, "Oh, do I not?" He's indecisive, and he's like, after that, he's like, "No, you know what? No, I'm not going to. The stakes are too high."